Hello everyone, I'm Professor Lee of Dr. Anti-Aging and Herbal Medicine TV. This is the second lecture of aging treatment by removing senescent cells. Today, we'll study about zombie cells that spread aging and the common characteristics of people who are prone to developing zombie cells. If you know who develops zombie cells, we'll learn how to prevent aging so that they are less likely to develop. Let's get started. What are zombie cells? Senescent cells are cells that can no longer divide and remain in suspended state. Although their growth has stopped, they are not dead cells, so they can perform various metabolic activities. However, they do not remain in a suspended state, but secrete inflammatory substances. The English expression for the secretion of various substances by senescent cells is SASP, and the translation is aging-related secretory phenotype cells. It means the senescent cells express their existence by releasing various secretory substances that affect surrounding cells. We studied why they secrete so many signaling substances in Part 1. First, they stop growth, and then they release signaling substances to let immune cells know their location and ask them to remove them. However, when you get older and immune senescence begins, you can't remove senescent cells right away. Then senescent cells will gradually accumulate. From this point on, the inflammatory substances released by senescent cells will also increase, and the surrounding area will become chronically inflamed. Among the surrounding cells, normal cells that are not senescent cells will also change into senescent cells due to chronic inflammation. That's why they are nicknamed zombie cells that spread aging. This process is very important in aging treatment. This is because aging can be delayed even if you don't remove zombie cells and only prevent the release of inflammatory substances. In an actual study using mice, it was revealed that suppressing only this process reduced the level of inflammation in the tissue and slowed down the aging rate. The most active way to delay aging in senescent cells is to remove senescent cells, but suppressing only the release of inflammatory substances by senescent cell is also an important aging delay method. I'll explain the method in detail later in Part 4. Now, I'll talk about the substances that zombie cells release to spread aging to their surroundings. First, cytokines. In Greek, cyto means cells and kine means movement. In other words, it's a substances that transmit signals to cause movement between cells, and most of them are protein that regulate inflammatory responses. If there are too many of these, the immune response becomes excessively activated, causing the surrounding to become chronically inflammatory. Second, as you can see in the picture, the tissues around the cells have melted and empty spaces have been created. This is due to matrix metalloproteinase secreted by zombie cells. The reason for secreting these enzymes is to melt the tissues around the aged cells and remodel them into new tissues. However, if they continue excessively, they can damage the tissues and make it easier for bacteria and cancer cells to invade through the empty spaces. Third, they secrete various growth factors. When growth factors are secreted in moderation, they create new blood vessels and new tissues, and they have a regenerative effect, but when they are released in excessive amount, as in zombie cells, they increase the risk of cancer cell growth. Firstly, it releases reactive oxygen species, which damage the DNA of itself and surrounding cells. What are the characteristics of people who have a lot of senescent cells? Anyone can answer this question if they know the fundamental origin of the appearance of senescent cells. When cells are severely damaged or exposed to continuous stress, they start dividing on their own to prevent them from progressing to a more dangerous state. Therefore, in the case of bad habits that easily cause DNA damage or telomere damage, as you studied in the previous lecture, senescent cells are likely to develop. As we'll study in other chapters, one of the important causes of aging is chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation is particularly important among the causes of aging, so there is even a term called inflammaging. the reason zombie cells continue to release inflammatory substances and rapidly spreading aging is because of chronic inflammation. And the most important reason for causing chronic inflammation is bad lifestyle habits. The accumulation of senescent cells alone causes chronic inflammation to continue, but if lifestyle habits that cause chronic inflammation are added to this, aging really accelerates. A diet rich in processed food, fast food, high sugar food, and trans fat promote inflammation. Excessive sugar and instant food consumption is especially bad because it can cause inflammation in the body. Excessive drinking puts a strain on the liver and stimulates the inflammatory responses in the body. Continuous drinking affects the immune system and worsens inflammatory conditions. Smoking promotes the production of inflammatory substances such as cytokines. Smoking also weakens the immune system and can create chronic inflammatory conditions. Chronic stress increases cortisol levels and secrete hormones and substances that cause inflammation. Long-term stress can prolong inflammatory responses and cause various health problems. Lack of exercise increases inflammation in the body, and lack of sleep increases the substances that promote inflammation. Obesity is one of the main causes of inflammation in the body. In particular, visceral obesity causes a lot of inflammatory substances, such as inflammatory cytokines. Senescent cells are originally an emergency stop system that prevent our body from reaching a more dangerous stage. This means that senescent cells are originally beneficial cells. Let's find out what beneficial things senescent cells do. First, it has a cancer prevention function. When cell DNA is mutated or damaged, there is a high possibility that it will become cancer cells. In this case, it can stop the growth of cells and prevent it from turning into cancer cells by converting it into senescent cells. This is a very important defense mechanism in cancer prevention. Second, it contributes to tissue regeneration and wound healing. Senescent cells attract immune cells to the area and help remove damaged tissues by causing an inflammatory response. This process plays an important role, especially when regeneration is needed in organs such as the skin or liver. Third, it regulates remodeling during the embryonic development of tissues. During development, senescent cells remove unnecessary cells and help form tissues. During the growth of a fetus, senescent cells transmit the necessary signals to the precisely formed specific tissues. During the growth of the fetus, unnecessary cells are removed and only the necessary cells remain so that the tissues and organs are properly formed. For example, fingers initially grow like webbed feet, but the cells in the tissue between the fingers die or become senescent, causing the fingers to separate. Another example is that during fetal brain development, neurons that have formed unnecessary or incorrect connection are removed through the aging process, thereby forming an efficient neural network. This role is important for life maintenance and development. Fourth, it also has immune activation and stem cell activation functions. Senescent cells activate stem cells and stimulate the immune system to enhance immune surveillance functions, thereby helping to remove damaged or abnormal cells. Therefore, you should not think of senescent cells as cells that only play a negative role. They play a beneficial role in the younger age. Senescent cells were not a problem in the past when the average lifespan was several decades shorter than it is now. However, now that the average lifespan has increased by several decades, senescent cells accumulate for a long period of time, which is the cause of aging and chronic disease. When senescent cells accumulate and cell aging accelerates, tissue aging naturally occurs, and since aging occurs continuously in the various organs, diseases occur here and there in the body. First, senescent cells are originally cells that prevent cancer, but if they continue to accumulate and inflammatory substances are continuously secreted, the tissue environment changes to a state suitable for cancer cell growth. They also promote cancer metastasis. Second, when vascular smooth muscle cells and endothelial cells change into senescent cells, inflammation spreads, the progression of arterial sclerosis accelerates, and blood vessel narrow. Third, senescent cells accumulate in the musculoskeletal system, and degenerative changes worsen due to inflammation and decreased tissue regeneration. Osteoporosis and degenerative disc disease occur quickly. In addition, cartilage ages and arthritis increases. Fourth, when senescent cells accumulate in the liver tissue, they promote inflammation and fibrosis regardless of drinking, causing hepatitis and hardening of the liver. When tissue hardens without a specific cause, it is called idiopathic fibrosis, and fibrosis, in particular, hardening of lung tissue, is fatal disease. This is also closely related to the aging of lung cells. Fifth, recent studies have confirmed that senescent cells are a factor in brain aneurysm and heart aneurysm by creating an inflammatory environment that weakens blood vessel walls and causes them to swell like balloons. 6. Senescence of lens epithelial cells causes the lens to become cloudy, causing cataracts, and when senescent cells accumulate in the cells to control the flow of aqueous humor in the eyes, intraocular pressure increases, which is an important factor in the development of glaucoma. 7. If chronic inflammation persists, it places excessive burden on pancreatic beta cells. Senescent beta cells lose their ability to divide, which leads to a decrease in insulin secretion and diabetes. 8. Senescent cells are considered one of the main mechanisms that accelerate the progression of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's diseases. In brain tissue, senescent cells increase the likelihood of neuronal damage and promote the accumulation of pathological proteins. 9. Accumulated senescent cells suppress the activity and proliferation of immune cells, which is one of the reasons why immunity decreases in the elderly. 10. The most important cause of obesity is chronic inflammation. When chronic inflammation continues due to the accumulation of senescent cells, diabetes occurs, and glucose cannot be utilized and accumulate, which leads to obesity. Chronic inflammation also interferes with the function of appetite-regulating hormones, causing obesity. When satellite cells, which are muscle stem cells that regenerate muscles, become senescent, muscle mass decreases and muscle strength weakens, resulting in sarcopenia. In this way, the accumulation of senescent cells goes beyond simple aging and can be an important cause of various diseases, including cancer. As a result, it shortens our healthy lifespan and overall lifespan. Next time, we'll diagnose and how many senescent cells there are in our bodies and study whether taking pills that remove them actually slow down aging and improve diseases. Stay healthy, and I'll see you again next time.